G'day legends, I hope that you're having a great midweek, that you're over hump day, getting planned for the weekend and looking after yourself, got some exercise in. So good for you, keep it up. Look, I'm not going to lie, it has been a hard PR week for Ukraine. You know, we start with the applauding of a Waffen SS in Canada, the 60-minute clip that went viral about money expenditure, and that gave a lot of fuel to a lot of people. The mainstream really raising more doubts about this, counteroffensive. And what the reason that's been doing that is it's been a slow news week. I put out a video a day and I need to make a video about something, and so does the mainstream, that they need to put out stuff, and, they will point fingers at things like this. And as well, yesterday, confirming the neutralisation of the commander of the Black Sea Fleet, all for him to show up in a Russian Ministry of Defence video. And now, even worse, is Poland has said that Ukraine was responsible for the missile that killed 2 Poles in Ukraine at a grain facility, at a farm. So we're just going to look over this, as this is something that really did change the way I see really this whole war. So Reuters has put this out, and it's from Polish newspapers and stuff as well. Got ads popping up everywhere. But Polish experts confirm missile that hit grain facility was Ukrainian. Polish experts have confirmed the missile that killed 2 people at a grain facility in southern Poland in November was fired by Ukraine. This is by this paper reported. Citing their source, the exploding missile NATO member Poland, fueling fears that war in Ukraine could spiral into a wider conflict, triggering alliance's mutual defence clause, saying the rocket has a range of 75 to 90 kilometres, that at the time, the Russian positions were in a place from which no Russian missile could reach this border town. And look, we knew this, but what we also knew is Ukraine, like they say here, has denied that one of its missiles landed in Poland. But we knew from the moment this really happened, it was like, well, this is probably pretty likely this happened. I released a video saying, like, look, we don't know exactly yet. Just wait a bit because we're unsure even what type it was. Once we found out what it was, we're like, right, most likely a Ukrainian one. But I mentioned in this is one of the moments that changed how I see this entire conflict. And this is where not taking responsibility for things, even that look bad, I think push so many people away and into other spheres and start doubting other things. Because Zelensky so vehemently confirmed that this was a Russian missile and pushed on NATO for more pressure. And I don't buy that Ukraine didn't know it wasn't their missile. For the amount of radar systems, the fucking launcher that went, all of this, I doubt. I'd say they knew straight away, but I'm not sure. I can't also back that up with anything. But at the time, Zelensky said, I have no doubt that this was not our missile. Also, and then calling it a significant escalation. So let's have a look at what he actually said. And this was from The Independent 10 months ago, November, when this happened. Russian missiles hit Poland, the territory of friendly people. People died. So a very significant escalation. We must act, calling on NATO to enact more. Well, no, what has come out today is this was one of your missiles, mate, that has gone in. And like I said, this changed how I saw so much of this conflict and the propaganda then around it. And as well, like, no shit, this wouldn't have happened without Russia's invasion. But I wish there'd be more fucking responsibility taken and tell the truth. Because like I said in the beginning, is this sort of thing does absolutely irreparable damage, especially when the PR campaign around this is so important. So now it's been sort of confirmed with what we knew from the beginning. Now, I also said that the commander of the Black Sea Fleet has shown up in footage. So let's have a look over this as well. So this is the video that has then been released, I believe, here. So we see that Shoigu is speaking here. This is him here. So that is what we see of the footage, and it scrolls through of Shoigu speaking, and then we see this close-up of him here. Now, We have more photographs, more screenshots of this here as well as I did find this very funny that we're going to see in the next meeting. Now, the most likely outcome is that he's just alive, that there isn't some great conspiracy around here, and that the report from the Ukrainian Special Forces was incorrect. As how are they actually going to confirm that he was dead without actually being there digging through the rubble? It's a bit like when all the Russian accounts were positive that Budanov or Zaruzny was killed, and then they both popped up to be alive and well. Now, there's already a million people who have jumped onto this photo saying that he doesn't move and that it's maybe just his body sitting there and his chair looks weird. While I will admit that this is possible, it's more likely that he is just alive. What they're pointing at is his chair here looks like a pillow, maybe something propped up. I think it just is a weird shape with a fucking towel over something. I don't really know here. It's just his body. Well, a lot of people say you can see him sort of blink here. I don't know. I'm not convinced on that, but I'm not convinced that he's been fucking whacked either. So let's look at what some of the accounts have said. Now, the new information to us is going to be this last bit here, but yesterday, Ukrainian Special Operations Forces reported him as dead as a result of a Storm Shadow missile strike last week that destroyed the Russian Black Sea Fleet headquarters in Sevastopol. Well, this photo has come out. In response, Ukrainian forces published this message. Clarification of the information regarding the death of the commander of the Russian Federation. 34 officers were killed due to a missile attack on the headquarters of the Black Sea Fleet of the Russian Federation. Available sources claim that among the dead was the commander of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Many still have not been identified due to the disparity of body fragments. Since the Russians were urgently forced to publish a response with an apparently alive Sokolov, our units are clarifying the information. This happened for collecting data on the results of the operation. Well, then it's not really that confirmed, I guess. Be interesting to see if he pops up anywhere else again. But we also have this bit of footage here from this same meeting of Shoigu speaking about the war moving on towards 2025. Action plan until 2025. The planned goals. We don't exactly know what the planned goals now actually are. Some will say it's just the Donbass, some will say it's just Donbass South, some will say it's all of Ukraine. We don't really know, but we're going to talk about that, like he says in the beginning, of kicking up some more of the industry to make more weapons, train more guys, all of this in a little bit. So what I do want to bring your attention to is this video from William Spaniel, who brings forward some very interesting observations. And I do applaud you to actually go and watch this video yourself. It's really well done, does a great job in it. But what the basic outline of this is that Ukraine's traditional offensive has failed. Firstly, by the mechanical maneuver, which is when we saw the Bradley and Leopard graveyards start to pile up, and then move to a grinding warfare technique, which has made, in the scheme of things, very small progress in a couple of small non-strategic towns. But where they need to be to really cut off the south, we've spoken about that Ukraine has made it into here, they need to be at least in Tokmak to cut off this highway and train lines through there as well. But in this, what he suggests is Ukraine may have a new strategy, which may be to switch to a more attritional warfare stance in a hope to really outlast the political will of the Russian forces. So he speaks about their conventional theory of victory, why some Western strategists are frustrated because what it really talks about is the Western strategists wanted like one area, they focus all forces, push down to get to the south, but Ukraine never really did that. There's more in Robotyne, but they've still covered the whole front line. And the switch to attrition, how war of attrition works, and Ukraine's alternate theory of victory, and Russia's election problem. Speaking that, well, it's got elections coming up. Can they mobilize more guys for Putin to actually then win that election again? How unpopular is that going to be? And can Ukraine actually win in a war of attrition? Now, if you watch Perun's new video as well, he does discuss how Russia is consuming more weapons faster than it can actually produce. As well, in this video from Will, it talks about could Putin actually do another mobilization as well. So the war of attrition, well, there's a lot of factors in this that you'd need to assume that Ukraine can actually maintain to win in the war of attrition. So at Russia's current pace, that production is not meeting the needs, at least for some stuff, and a lot of very important weapons, if what is being reported is correct, but that could all be propaganda as well. But that said, to maintain that attrition of the Russian forces, Ukraine can't afford to drop its pace at all either. Can Ukraine continue to maintain this same pace? As well as, one of the big things we have to assume is Ukraine is going to get as much, if not more, support from the West and continue on that it's not going to drop at all. Also has to presume that Russia can't do another few mobilizations of more men and can't lift production to a higher rate without being significantly unpopular. So, it needs to assume that Russia is actually attriting much faster than Ukraine. Russia has a bigger military and a higher population by many times. So it needs to attrit much faster to be at the same level collapsing. And we need to, it is assuming that, this is actually, 3-1, 4-1, which we don't actually know. We don't actually know that is happening. We don't know the numbers of casualties on either side. As well, as I said, the Western support has to stay the same to maintain that same pressure on the Russians. But it does suggest that maybe there are more issues in Russia than we actually know. Maybe Ukraine knows something that we don't and are waiting on Russia to sort of self-implode rather than winning the ground war. And this was a very interesting video. Really go and watch it. And I think it's a very interesting idea, and it did open my eyes up to looking at some things differently in this offensive. But that said, I have fallen into the trap before and been wrong many times. Been wrong that I think there's some 4D chess game going on. Literally, for like the first 6 months, I was convinced that there has to be more. This is not the Russian army that we were told they had. And that's our propaganda because, being like in the military, our intelligence service must have known that Russia wasn't as powerful as like America. But I guess to maintain then the militaries, to maintain morale, to maintain amongst a country of, hey, we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars on defense, you need a real enemy out there. You need someone who could actually threaten your sort of country. And I'm guessing the propaganda built up where Russia actually was. But like I said, the 4D chess, you think, there's got to be something more coming. I think a lot of people still believe that this is not the Russian army that we were told they had. And I think that we're seeing this now on the other side with these offensives, that there's got to be some 4D chess game going on. There's got to be more in this. But personally, I just think that this is a super hard battle for now the two countries involved, being Ukraine and Russia, and that neither country is on the brink of collapse, like both sides will say. And the war is just going to attrit both sides to unbelievable numbers over the next, say, year, and we'll either see a breakthrough somewhere because it's just attritted so far down, or a real push into some diplomatic solution there. But very interesting video, and if Ukraine is doing that, it will be a huge win if they can actually pull off then a war and win the war of attrition there, because we know Ukraine can just pump in weapons and stuff, but what the West can't pump into Ukraine is bodies. They can't pump in men unless they were to mobilize NATO to go in, which is just not ever going to happen in the wildest dreams of this. Now, over the past week, we have seen 3 successful strikes against Ukrainian airfields, which is something we haven't seen for a while, especially with the new drones that are coming out, the new Lancet drones. We're having now a longer range. So we saw another strike at the Dolgan-Stevo Air Base, which is in Kryvyi Rih, struck again by a Lancet long-range drone. Now, this is claimed to have hit a Ukrainian MiG-29 like it did last time, but the footage is just too shit to actually make out. But this is the best bit of footage we actually have here of this strike. Now, as we know against this one, this is the one where the drone came in, sort of hit on the side and exploded. We don't know how much damage was actually done to the MiG-29, but this is the exact location of then where it happened. So Kryvyi Rih here, that's the strike we saw last time, and let's measure some distance out to the closest point, which is not going to be 5 from here. It's going to be at least, say, 10 Ks. So we're talking 80 Ks, maybe 50 miles, somewhere maybe here's closer. We're still talking a very long way. And this is what we know, that the Lancet has had some updates, because we knew that the original Lancet had a range of about 40 Ks. And the original Lancet was a real winner for Russia. It did have a lot of success. But now this new version has shown multiple times that it can strike much deeper, at least in the last few weeks, on multiple occasions. Now, speaking of Russian drones, well, drones going into Russia as well that Iran has released new photos, new footage of the new Shahed 136 drone and also the launcher. Now, most of this has come out as Shoigu visited Iran as well. So we said, this is Shoigu here. And then we see, of course, the launchers in the background here as well. We see then an unknown long-range cruise drone missile thing that Shoigu here is looking at in Iran as well. Now, this is some of the first time we've actually seen all of this. Now, what we do know is that Shaheds do have a high rate of being intercepted, but are also getting through Ukrainians' air defense. So yes, they're losing a lot, but there are a lot are still getting through, and they're very cheap compared to a lot of the air defense missiles. And, you know, the biggest deterrent for them are the Gepard systems from Germany, which is like the machine gun bloody air defense, but still a lot are getting through. So this was just 21 hours ago that Russia's overnight attack injures 2, damages infrastructure, launched 38 Shahed drones at Ukraine overnight, and that Ukrainian air defenses shot down 26. So a minimum of 12 got through there. So still a third, a quarter are getting through. And like I said, these are cheap to make and having a lot of success still sneaking through here. So let's actually have a look over these as well. So this is like the Rigididge original Shahed drone here with the little propeller engine on the back. Next thing we see the newer version here, which is said to have a much lower radar cross-section as well, as they've smoothed out a lot of these edges, and it's a much sort of more modern looking drone. So let's see at the claims here as well. So the Shahed 13X UAV, in addition to the engine, has undergone changes in the body design with the increase of the sweep angle, can be used for higher speed both in cruise mode, so 350 Ks, and in dive mode, 450 to 600 kilometers, and better glide, as well as the increase the amount of fuel transportation due to the difference in weight of the engine from 16 kilos to 5 kilos. So a third the engine weight, therefore can go a lot further and might carry more bang as well, but we don't really know on this. So they have that variant, which is, I want to see the photo of the back of it here, which has reduced the radar cross-section here, smoothing things out. But then they also have then the turbo variant. It's like any shitty car, you just add turbo on this back and it's way better. Turbos are awesome, don't take that away from me. Anyway, that then is this variant here, which instead of the prop has a little jet engine here too, with the more swept wing for higher speed. And you can just see the difference overall between these two systems. This one looks a lot more modern and refined, but as well as then the launcher here. So we see this video here, just the speed of which these are launching out and going from there as well. And I think we've got some more footage of one of them actually striking here as well. So that is dropped by a plane. And then a successful strike on, not a target, but just a training thing there as well. We do know that these are a real problem in Ukraine. They are having successful strikes. They are losing some. But, you know, it is still having a massive impact. Now, this is why geolocation is important. This bloke, who has 1.2 million followers, has claimed that this military airfield is on fire in Moscow right now. Anyway, Geo confirmed here that this is not near the airfield, that the point of view is facing towards the other direction, and actually gave the grid of where it is. I checked it out. I don't know what's there. It just seems like a building that's on fire. And this is why geolocation is super important in things like this. People will move things to try and fit their way. Anyway, let's have a look at the maps. Now, there has been very little change. There's been no change down in the south near Robertini. The only change that we have seen on any of the maps Surak hasn't released is just a little bit more than around Bakhmut here. So we see that line push. This is, of course, the train line through here, which we knew was super important. Let's load up satellite image so we can actually have a look at that. So Ukraine has pushed up to the train line in many locations and well past it through Andrivka in here as well. But the grey zone, they're increasing, not really their held territory. But Ukraine is having success up around Bakhmut and some in and around Verbovy, but we don't know. Well, it's not that much to say where it is actually moving. There are claims that Ukraine has entered more into Verbovy. There's been footage that's been geolocated that shows it was actually from autumn last year as well. So we don't really know what's going on here. But I wanted to read something too that's a little bit out there. Now, is this a massive breakthrough? It is a break into the Surovikin line, but there's still a lot. It's in one small location and still a lot to then go. But ISW also released this, which is left me scratching my head and left a lot of people taking the piss. Putin may have ordered the Russian military command to hold all Russia's initial defensive positions to create the illusion that Ukrainian counteroffensive have not achieved any tactical or operational effects despite substantial Western support. Like, what? Like, if they're holding the initial defensive positions, then Ukraine hasn't broken through anywhere. I don't know what this they're trying to say here. Like I said, ISW, I don't know what the fuck you're on about here. ISW, of course, is heavily biased towards Ukraine, but do put out some good information, and I think this is just a real one-off there. But you just need to read between the lines with these that have their own agendas as well. Anyway, legends. That is it from me. I'm trying to keep these shorter. I do apologise. Maybe I rambled a bit in the beginning, but look after yourselves. Have a great rest of the week. If you'd like to support me, there's merch links. There's other links down below, but never feel obliged. I'll speak to you soon. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.